I don't believe trade is the main driver of that, but I'll grant that it does happen sometimes.
Who cares about bringing in money? Okay, the whole idea of running like a business.
I don't really think it's something that you should take. I don't know.
The argument against charging people rent?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, typically the philosophical argument against
that's a legitimate criticism. Because, I mean, you look at why USA was even invented.
So, I don't know. Like, I think the recurring theme or recurring trend is that
less and less government. I want personal responsibility. I want personal accountability.
say that I'm like left and liberal. I don't identify as like a communist or any of this stuff. Probably like why would that be revelatory to know that water boils in?
About people who are diplomats or ambassadors from other.
Did I say that? Did I say that it was theoretically possible to include like it increase?
Natural society is a society where it's survival of.
You can. What you're describing, you can't do. It's, first of all, not what I'm talking about. Second of all, we can't.
So basically, like, even your Lord and Savior Donald Trump didn't do the best job
at nature. We refer to it as being conscious, or the conscious community.
So I think that gay marriage at the Constitution at the Supreme Court level actually...
No, but my man just is in the building.
And I find it very interesting that fellow believers are...
I'm sure there are examples, but these are minor examples compared to the ones that I'm putting down too.
It's unconstitutional, they shouldn't do it. But now they're arguing about, well, if they do it...
This video with your little blonde hair.
Yeah, that's what your mom said last night, too.
Let's ignore USAID. That's obviously upsetting you, and I get that. Because
no, it's not upsetting me.
There's a reason I'm successful. There's a reason why I'm liked.
This is exactly why Democrats...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, here bringing to you live another Throwdown Thursday. Joining me this evening is TJump. You can go check him out. He is live streaming as well. If you'd like to go over, send your love, subscribe, shout out, like, send super chats, whatever you need to do, you are more than welcome to. We fully support it. But TJump has an interesting perspective this evening that we are going to deep dive into. I have not yet heard this claim. This is the first in as many morality arguments and debates we've had. I've not yet had an atheist come on and claim that morality is objective, and specifically being able to be objective without God. So, Tom, I'm going to hand it over to you if you want to kind of spill out your initial claims here, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'm a moral realist, like most academic philosophers. Moral realism is just the position that morality has true statements that are stance independent, true independent of what anybody thinks about them. And it can be grounded in anything, essentially. Like, for morality to be objective, it just needs to be true independent of any mind or opinion. So like a platonic object, or a rational a priori truth, or a law of physics, or a grounded in naturalistic pantheism, just the way nature is. There's lots of ways it can be objective. I lean towards naturalistic pantheism. I think a more interesting approach is the fact that since we are about to invent artificial general intelligence, we need to give it some kind of morality to make sure it doesn't turn us all into paper clips. And so we need to figure out what the best model of morality to give it would be. And if the moral subjectivists are true, then there's no correct answer to that question. If there is a correct answer to that question, there is an objectively best system of morality we can give an AI, then there is an objective morality. So it's very simple to understand there's going to be an objective morality, because there's got to be a best system to give artificial intelligence. And the best way to describe that would be to start from the perspective of what would a morally perfect world be like. How do we describe that? And how do we describe that with the least principles possible? And from that, we can derive pragmatic applications of how we can do things in our world to make it closer to the best of all possible worlds. And so my position starts with the idea that a perfectly moral world would be a world that it is impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing. And the technical jargon would be like any involuntary imposition of will is immoral, and any voluntary assistance of will is moral. From this, we can say that it would not only be impossible to restrict people by other people, but also by nature. So aging would be immoral. That would be impossible. Death rocks falling on you would be immoral. That would be impossible.
Mhm.
And the only way to accomplish such a world would essentially be everybody has a starting point of their own world, their own universe, which they have full control over. It's their universe. They can design however they want. All conscious agents get their own universe. And there can be like a hub, like a gathering hub, like Twitter, where everyone can interact, but there's nothing anyone can do to anyone who doesn't consent to it in this hub. And you can change or refine rules in your world however you see fit, but no one is forced to enter without their consent, which would include full knowledge of whatever rules you have in your world. And this gives us a description of essentially just what a perfectly moral world would look like. And once we have that, we can give it to an AI to essentially make the best decisions possible given our current situation, where we are in any spectrum from the worst world to the best world. And it can be the correct moral decision, the best that we can do in any given situation. That's generally the idea.
Okay. Can you, because you mentioned moral realist, but then you dive down the path of a naturalist pantheism?
Naturalistic
Right.
pantheism is
Naturalistic.
pantheism is just an idea that nature is fundamental. There's some fundamental thing that is nature, and that is the God. No conscious being needed. So naturalistic pantheism is essentially scientific version of theism, where it just says science, matter, and energy are the fundamental things. There's no God being, and that's it.
So that's assuming nobody just came and made it. It's just there. Right?
Yeah,
Because,
nature would be the necessary thing, just like how Christians think God is the necessary thing.
Okay. Because, I mean, that kind of that makes me think of maybe evolution versus creationism in that aspect. Like in terms of science, they have like the Big Bang Theory and then all of these other little mini theories out of that. Whereas Christianity believes that creationism was that God made. So without God, then things weren't made. But in the scientific realm of it, things collided and mutated and moved in this and that or another, so on and so forth. But you're saying that fundamental piece would be the necessary, right? Versus, am I understanding that correctly?
I think so. So yeah, like most worldviews hold that there is something that is foundational and uncreated. Theism holds that is a God of some kind. Pantheism holds that is nature. Nature is the necessary uncreated thing, or more like specific would be like a quantum particle or a quantum field or something along those lines.
Okay. Well, how does that? How would that tie in with? Like, how do you make that as the necessary? Like, how would you define that in terms of what is a necessary? I don't know if I'm asking that correctly.
So yeah, necessary being is defined as a being that exists in all possible worlds. So any world that exists, if something exists in it, it would be a necessary being. That's all it means. Okay.
So if aliens came and created the earth, then they would be the necessary being in that aspect. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter what the thing is. It's just that thing is required in order to cause and effect move its way down, right?
Sort of. So it's something that must exist in all logically possible worlds. So it's not specifically like whatever created the universe might not be logically necessary, because it could have been created by something else. And those would just be possible worlds. A necessary being is one that exists in all logically possible worlds.
Okay. Now, wouldn't that kick out the concept of God then?
God would be the necessary being that they're arguing for, and we're replacing that with a non-God.
Right. But would that say that, because you're saying from all logical, so wouldn't that kind of negate God as, because I think it's kind of debated whether it's logical that God is, right?
Right. So if I'm correct and naturalistic pantheism is true, that means God is incorrect and doesn't.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying there. Okay. That makes sense. Now, you were talking about AI morality, and I didn't even pick up on this one before, that this would be a problem in terms of what we feed the AI. And I think that this, especially in today's world and what we see happening with AI being like in everybody's household and on everybody's phones, and everything that we're doing is AI generated in some weird way. But give me kind of a rundown with what we would feed AI in terms of telling it what the morality shouldn't be, and why. Why would we pick certain things over others?
Okay, so the biggest problem with AI morality is that AI is faster and smarter. Well, when it gets created, it's faster and smarter than any human ever will be. So if there's a way to game the system, it will find a way to game the system, and it can do it in any way it can conceive of. So if we say that the goal is to end world conflict, well, it could just kill all humans and end world conflict. Problem solved. So we need to make sure that there are guardrails that make it accomplish the goal without killing everyone or destroying our lives or making us all slaves or putting us all in the matrix without our consent. So, and because AI is so smart and can find any possible loophole in any system we create, creating such a system is extremely difficult.
Well, because like at what point do you miss a loophole, right? And that's the danger of it. If I feed it one thing and if I tell it, like, for instance, I know that movie I, Robot, I mean, as much as it could be utilized in this instance, like it had, I think, like 3 rules or something like that. And then the AI or computer actually figured out a way to loophole it, even though it was technically breaking a laws it technically wasn't, right? To protect all humans in any given situation. And the best thing to protect all humans in that movie was to basically rally them all together and control them, because it's for their own good, their best interest, right? So in terms of AI, with like, what do you have an idea of what kind of rules or laws it needs to follow in order to feed into the correct guardrails, I guess you could say?
Well, yeah, that's the hypothesis that I'm presenting. My morality says any involuntary imposition of will is immoral. So forcing anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing, that's the rule that needs to follow. That's bad. Don't do that.
Well, I mean, I think you did mention about children, obviously telling a child like not to do something that will, is harmful, right? Or something that is not their best interest would be good. But in terms of adults, like I don't necessarily consent to wanting to work every day, right? I wouldn't necessarily consent to having to pay taxes or other, I don't know. I wouldn't consent to I don't know, somebody talking shit about me or something like that. But that doesn't mean that that's going to stop anybody from doing those things, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple points there. One is that kids can't consent, and so they wouldn't have the option to be able to do whatever they wanted in this context.
Right.
We would make an active effort to give every human or every conscious agent the intellectual and emotional development of an adult human, because it's technically not moral that conscious agents start without that. It's pretty immoral to actually start them without that. So we would try to make sure that anyone who is conscious should be given, through whatever means, like downloading intelligence into their brain or whatever, full human levels of intelligence. Secondly, there's lots of examples like, is it moral that we pay taxes? No, it's not moral at all. It's something we force on people in order to prevent a greater bad thing, which is like having no roads and starving to death and no healthcare in some countries, not the United States. So we force people to pay taxes to prevent worse things from happening. That doesn't mean paying taxes is good. It's just a lesser evil to prevent the greater evil. So I would agree that taxes are immoral, and that if we shouldn't have to pay them, and if in an AI controlled world we could essentially solve those problems without taxes, then getting rid of taxes would be morally good. But in the case of like having someone talk shit about you, that would not be immoral, because your will only applies to yourself and your property. So trying to restrict someone else's freedoms because you don't like it wouldn't be a restriction on you to say no. They can still talk shit about you if they want. Freedom of speech is still a thing.
Right. Okay. So let's go into the idea of I don't know, getting into a fight with somebody. I mean, what if I consent to getting into a fight with them, maybe, but I also didn't consent to them like beating the shit out of me either. At what point can you pull consent? I guess maybe would be my question. Or can you pull consent? Like, when does it start? When does it end? At what point?
Yeah, you can definitely say that I consent to a fight like a boxing match, and then as soon as I surrender, well, the consent is over. If you don't consent, in the best possible world, it would just be physically impossible, so you wouldn't be able to do it. Obviously, we're not in the best of all possible worlds, and so there are rules that we have to impose in order to try and prevent when things do happen that go against our consent.
Okay. So 18 would be your number for when you can give consent, I'm assuming.
Say that again?
18 would be, I'm guessing, your number where you can give consent, legal consent.
Yeah, legal consent. There's probably some like objective truth value of what kind of brain function requires that. Like obviously, if you're mentally handicapped, you can't even get consent after 18. So the mental requirement isn't based on age; it's based off something more fundamental. I have no idea what that is, though.
What about, if somebody, we see a lot of scams and stuff, and you could technically say somebody gave consent to doing a thing based off of whatever this scam was or manipulation, so on and so forth. But they were still old enough to give consent and they still okayed it. Would you still say that that would be immoral because they were scammed, even though maybe bad thing didn't necessarily happen, but it's, they were gullible to do something or give somebody money or whatever the case? Kind of where does that float in there?
Yeah, consent requires full knowledge of what's happening. So if someone tells you they're going to do something and you consent to it and they do more than that, then you haven't given consent to that whatever more they do. So that wouldn't be moral. So consent only applies with full knowledge of the implications of what you're consenting to, not with any like hidden meaning things. Those you haven't consented to, so it would be immoral.
Okay, just kind of poking at that. So with AI, though, what would be worst case scenario if we don't get their morality correct, if we don't feed it the right information? At what point, what would be the worst case scenario? Like we all die or Terminator 3?
No, that wouldn't be the worst case scenario. That would just be, that wouldn't even be in the top 10 of the worst case scenario. So worst case scenario would be like worst possible suffering for everyone, where it turns us all into prisoners to torture for all eternity and keep us alive. That would probably be the worst possible. Or it just turns the world into the Christian worldview. Then that would be pretty bad.
Oh my God, that's solid. That's solid. That's fair. So I guess Christianity is not your friend here in that aspect.
Yes, I'm not a fan of the drowning babies God.
Fair enough. Fair enough. With AI, what would be in term? Let's assume all of the loopholes are covered. Everything is perfect. What would the best case scenario be with AI and how it works with us?
It would essentially be an extension, a tool of your desires. So you say, I want to not pay taxes. It would just solve your problems for you. It would give you the home, it would give you the income you need, help you find friends and relationships who you would vibe with, help you to find the hobbies that you enjoy, help you to explore reality and achieve your goals.
What goals do you have if it's, are you saying it like gives you a house?
Sure, why not? AI can build houses, sure.
Does this require money?
No. So like AI can operate without money. I mean, I wouldn't say money is neither good nor bad. It's just a medium to represent work essentially, or human activity. So you don't need money. You can get rid of it, but either system would be fine.
So I just, let's see, we're 100 years from now and we're in this whatever perfect world. Money is not required to feed AI a prompt to say, I'd like a house, a wife or husband, whatever, and 3 kids, a dog. And I'd like to spend my days on the beach, sipping margaritas and painting the ocean and sky.
Yeah. So like you could totally do that. And yeah, money wouldn't be required at that point. So one obvious way is like we could create something like the Matrix, and everybody can be in the Matrix and have their own digital world. And in that world, you can make whatever you want, as long as it's not other conscious agents. You can design it however you want.
So so this is like VR style kind of thing?
That's just one of the possibilities. So we can, if we got enough control over the laws of physics, we could just do it physically too.
So like my body would be sitting somewhere in a like tank or something while I'm, plugged in.
That's one of the possibilities. Another one is we can just upload consciousness entirely, or we can make your body into a like robot kind of body where you don't have a specific single state where you exist and you exist in lots of places at once. There's lots of possibilities.
What are we doing with all these bodies? Seems like a double job. Like I have my body here, but then I'm plugged into this other thing here.
Have you ever played a video game?
Yes.
So you can like be Link in 1 minute and then Mario in the next minute, and that's totally fine.
Yes, but I am still the human, and Mario and Link and all that are just little things that don't have souls or existence, and they're just running a program, right?
Well, sure, but why is your body any different than Link's body or Mario's body? It's just physical.
Because when I'm done playing, I put the game away, and then I go and I live in the real world.
Sure, but that would be the same thing. So like you can have a physical body, you can have lots of different physical bodies, and you can just switch between them. There's no logical contradiction there.
So that's living though?
Why would that not be living?
Well, I mean, you're in a pseudo life.
Why would it be a pseudo life? Like if you can move your consciousness from one body to a new body and both are equally physical and real, why would it be any less living?
Well, it's escapism, right? Isn't that escapism?
No. Why would that be escapism?
Well, why am I not just here in my body?
Well, you can if you want to be. That's your
plugging into like a virtual reality type of thing.
Well, again, so that's an option, and there's also just we have control over physics. We can just make it physically. There's no digital reality; just is physically a new body.
Okay, so instead of let me make sure I understand this. Instead of just being here in reality, I go and I plug into a second reality.
No, so this is 100% reality. All of it, like we just
but I would still feel everything. You were saying how we could, plug consciousness and all of these other things.
Forget the computer analogy. Let's say AI just has control over the laws of physics such that it can just create new bodies and you just go with a new body. So it's the exact same reality.
So just taking me and putting me in a new body, would you be disposing of my old body, or it's just
it's yours? You can do whatever you want with it.
I'm all over the place with this. I feel like I'm watching some kind of like weird virtual reality nightmare horror film or something of like Attack of the Robots, but then Matrix, and then I don't even know.
That's interesting. What about it seems like a horror and not a heaven?
I don't know. I think that it's like, why not utilize the actual reality here on Earth? What I have going on here and now, instead of trying to escape to this kind of pseudo world. Like, yeah, I can still feel, touch, smell, scent, whatever. All of those things are a possibility, but it's still not the real me. Like, and maybe I'll come at it. Maybe I'll try from a Christian standpoint to throw some disagreement in there. God made me, right? And this body, this is mine. This is my soul. My heart is beating, so on and so forth. If I was living in this whole second world, like what, and just leaving what God gave me, it doesn't make any sense to me. Where's my soul going? Is my soul stuck in my body? Your soul
would be essentially your consciousness. So there's no evidence of a soul anywhere in any scientific field at all. But if you wanted to say that your consciousness, your direct awareness of reality is your soul, that is you. Wherever that is you. Wherever that is reality. It can't be a digital consciousness. You are you. You can't digitally not exist. So consciousness is fundamentally real wherever it is. Whatever body you're in, you're still you. It's still real. And that would still be your soul, essentially. So just be transferring your soul from one physical state to another. The idea that suppose God did create us in this body, and we don't have a consent to leave or change it or modify it in any way. We're just kind of trapped here. That's slavery. That he's entrapped us without our consent. You laugh at that, but what about that? Do you think is incorrect?
You use the argument on it. Okay,
well, think about that
without my consent, right?
Wrong?
Then,
yeah.
Well, but then you could say I was born without my consent. Then should we all just go up to Canada and call it a day? I mean, it wasn't my consent to be here. My parents made me, and it wasn't my consent to be made.
Well, sure, being made, like if you don't exist, then there's no will to impose upon by making you exist. So there's nothing wrong with creating a consciousness, but there is something wrong with creating a consciousness, then trapping it in a body that ages and is old and dies and has cancer and has worms in the eyes of a 4-year-old. That's immoral. So if God created a body that you don't consent to, that is full of suffering that you didn't consent to, that causes you pain and depression and absolute misery for many, many years that you didn't consent to, that would be immoral. But the act of creation itself wouldn't be immoral. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you give the being the freedom to design its own life.
Well, okay. So I guess maybe that's what you're proposing, is creating your own new life. I was created in this body, in this moment, in this time, and this is what I was given, but I don't consent to this body anymore. I want to go into this thing, and this is what I'm going to consent to. Something completely different.
Yes, that would be a more moral world where you could I don't want to be fat anymore, but I don't really want to exercise, snap your fingers, 6-pack.
Well, see, you're taking away, I mean,
what am I taking away?
I think this is a world of destruction. If I just snap my fingers and change it every time I don't like something, well, like what we're going to become, it's never going to be enough. Nothing's ever going to be enough. We're already seeing this problem with all the plastic surgeries and all of the, that kind of crazy, I want to look like Barbie doll or stuff like that. We're seeing this already happen. I don't like the way I look. And therefore I'm going to go have this doctor do X, Y, and Z and change it. Or I don't want to lose the weight, so I'm going to go to this doctor and have them make my stomach shrink my stomach and then liposuction the skin because I don't want to work for it. So are you saying that like you want to take away the mere concept of like working for things that we have and just make it just a snap of a fingers to get things that we didn't even earn or deserve, or just to change something because I don't like that anymore?
Well, there's a couple things. One is that we do deserve that freedom. That's not something we absolutely deserve. You don't deserve to be trapped in a body you didn't consent to. That's slavery. But more importantly, I don't want to get rid of work. I want to make work optional, which is the more moral situation. So if you think that working to change your body is a fruitful effort that can build character, you should absolutely 100% have the right to do that. The only difference in my situation is anyone who doesn't think that doesn't have to agree or live by your set of preferred lifestyles. They can choose their own lifestyle. If they don't want to be fat, snap my fingers, that's my choice. If you want to work for it, you have the freedom to work for it. So the difference between the two worlds that you described is, one is that you're imposing slavery on everyone who doesn't want it and say, no, you must work for it without your consent because I think it's better this way. My option is each individual gets to choose for themselves whether they want to work for it, whether they want to develop character that way, or if they want to live in the way that they prefer. So my world would be more moral because I'm giving people the option and not taking away their option to work, but it becomes optional. Whereas in the world you described, the God Christian worldview, it's imposed on people without their consent, which is slavery.
So let me, I'm just thinking, like, you're taking away productivity of the human nature, right? That our human nature is we are productive creatures. We have a force of will behind us. We have maybe there's some generations coming up that are a little more lazy.
What do you mean you get rid of productivity? I don't understand what you're saying there. Because you can
where's the productivity in that, in terms of being a human, right? So you're saying that, okay, I don't even, you even said working was optional, correct too?
Yes,
right?
Working would be optional.
So who is moving this perfect world if nobody's
Gravity?
working?
I don't. You mean like an economy or something? Like you can still have an economy without work. Video games do it pretty well all the time. But if you believe in an all-powerful God who can snap his fingers and do this in a second, I don't see why it's so hard to imagine that God's like, oh yeah, all your needs are taken care of. You don't actually need to work because you're slaves in my world. I'll just.
But
give
how
you
does
food.
the system? How does the system work, though? Well, where does this food come from?
I mean, I'm assuming you're Christian, correct?
Uh-huh.
So you believe in an all-powerful God, infinitely power, can create infinite mini universes with the snap of a finger. So if he wanted to, he could snap his fingers and make sushi fall from the sky in infinite amounts.
I mean, okay, we could.
So
right.
So if we wanted to create infinitely many food, so people just had food, God could do it, or God could just eliminate the need for food. He's all powerful. He could probably do this, or he could just make it so we don't age or don't die. Like all powerful kind of gives us a little bit of options to work with here. So
how didn't we have all of that until the Eve ate the apple and then things changed it up a little bit?
Well,
story-wise, like we had that.
Not quite. No. But let's just analyze that one for a moment. So there were two human beings who didn't have knowledge of right and wrong, which is what they got when they ate the apple. So they couldn't consent. They were children, and God told the children not to do something, and they did it because they were children and they can't consent. And then he imposed an eternity of punishment on them because they were children and they did something they couldn't understand. And then after doing it, they gained understanding. That seems rather ridiculous, but let's assume that's true. Okay.
But they still had endless amounts of food growing, like all of the gardening, the gardens and all the animals and everything was already there. Women for childbirth, there would be no pain for that. Like all these new things came after that, right?
Right.
So
but they were missing
when you
one
say,
key feature.
What?
Knowledge that they weren't adults. They couldn't consent. They were children.
Right, but you said parents dealing with their kids accordingly was okay because they couldn't consent.
Right. Remember, as I said earlier, that having children itself not have the intellectual capacity to consent is itself an immorality. Every conscious agent should start with the adult level of intelligence and ability to consent. And so if a child can't consent and you punish them by, say, capital punishment, killing them because they did something you disagree with, that would be horribly immoral. That would be like, clearly they're a kid. They can't consent. You can't punish them for doing something that they can't understand is wrong. So like if Adam and Eve can't understand because they don't have the knowledge to understand these things and they can't consent, punishing them for eating the apple is like punishing a child. It is like killing a child or throwing a child into a forest because they ate your cookie. That's clearly immoral. That's clearly a bad way to do things. If God had been a moral God, what he would have done was just give them the knowledge to start with, and then they can live with the garden, or that still wouldn't be sufficient. They'd still be trapped in bodies they didn't consent to. They'd still be trapped in a world they didn't consent to. They couldn't leave if they wanted to. So the only thing a moral God could do would be create the world I'm describing, a world where every conscious being gets its own universe, which it can design however it wants with adult level intelligence from the start and freedom from any other conscious agent. So God would be unable to restrict them in any way in their own world. They would get freedom in their own world because it's immoral for one being to be able to control another being without his consent. It's immoral.
So, but this would like be taking your conscience out of your body and putting it into this new world. So you don't even need your body, right?
Sure. If you want, you could have a body.
Perfect worlds.
Well, it would be optional. You can choose.
Well, okay, but what happens to, what happens to the people who say, I'm good with just the body I've been given. I'm happy with it.
Keep it. You're good.
Right. But
you
then
freedom.
Are they working? Is this perfect world like somewhere else? How is this whole...
So you have the freedom to be like, I'm going to accept the world as God designed it and live in the God designed world under God. And you can restrict or not give up your ability to consent to just be a part of a slave of God's world. And you can do that. So you can be exactly in this world, exactly as it is, if you consent. The only difference is that people who don't consent would be able to go to their own world. So that's the only difference I'm advocating for, is not to stop Christians' ability to live in the world as God designed it, or their perception that you can't grow without this world. If you believe that, feel free to live in this world exactly as it is. The only difference is people who don't consent can snap their fingers and go to their own world and be like, no, I'd rather not suffer from malaria.
So so it's kind of like two separate places. I consent to go to my own little universe, and anything that I do consent to. What if people consent to things that are immoral?
Like what?
Let's say I consented to somebody, killing me, for instance.
Euthanasia is not immoral.
Well, that can be debated.
Not
But
really.
let's say I want them to like crazy, not peaceful, not serene, just gushing everywhere, like something out of a horror film. Like, that's immoral, right?
No, why would that be immoral? So, like, if you are a fully knowledgeable, healthy mind, consenting adult, and you just want to experience that, you have every right to say, this is what I'd like to experience, and experience it. There's nothing wrong about that. Now, there's two different interpretations there. One is that the permanent death interpretation. If you genuinely want to experience permanent death via those means, and you genuinely consent to it, fully knowing the consequences, and you are an adult human being, you should have the right to consent to that. The second is like in a video game. If you want to experience it and just respawn, of course it's not immoral. Of course you can do that.
So this is very much like a video game for you. Like,
well, no, that's a video games are an easy way to explain it, but the philosophy is that there's no difference in this reality than there is in the world I'm describing.
So there's going to be part of the population that decides I'm happy being me. I'm gonna stay right here. And then there's a whole nother part of the population that's going to be like, I want to go live in almost what would be considered a video game for the rest of my life.
Well, again, no, it wouldn't be considered a video game. It'd just be a world they choose.
Well, yeah, but it would be electronic based off this AI stuff, right?
No. So again, that's
No?
just an analogy. So that's just a way to help people understand it if they don't have the depth level of understanding of metaphysics to know what possible worlds means. So if you don't know what possible worlds are and necessary worlds and modal logic, then video games are a best way to explain it to you. But there's literally no difference in the level of real of this current world we live in and any of the possible worlds you could inhabit in the BPW. So your own personal world would be equally as real as the world God created, equally as physical if you want it to be physical, equally as your soul is there. There's no extra body in the real world for you. You just entirely inhabit that world and not this one.
I see. Okay. So it's like this or that. Now what's the end all benefit from this? Like, you're not going to die of malaria.
Like a moral world, that would be the end.
Do you think people can be moral, even when given these guidelines?
Yes. Why wouldn't they be?
Well, what will enforce that within that world?
It'd just be physically impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing.
It just doesn't let you.
Yeah, well, you don't let it happen to you. So yeah.
Is there? But there's no like enforcement mechanism. Like, it wouldn't even happen. It's not even possible.
Right. So the laws of physics in this universe is that it's literally impossible for anything to happen to you that you don't consent to. So you yourself have to consent to anything before it happens to you. And it's just physically impossible for it to happen to you otherwise. So it'd be like, in your worldview, you imagine God is the one controlling the strings. In this worldview, physics is controlling the strings, and it just makes it impossible.
So how is society benefiting from this? Everybody has to be moral and play nice, because the laws of physics completely diminish the ability to do otherwise, right?
Well, no. Again,
So,
so anything you can do here, you can do there. They just have to consent to
but
it.
you have to consent to it, right?
Right.
So, but doesn't that kind of remove the concept of free will in that aspect?
How? So, like, can you fly? Can you just jump up and fly into the sky at will?
No.
No. There are things you physically can't do. Does that stop you from having free will?
Well, no, yeah, I don't think so.
So
But
why would additional things you can't do? And in this context, there'd be infinitely many more things you could do that you like in the best possible world, you could jump up and fly.
are there
You just
families?
if
Like,
they want to be, yes.
if
So
you
yeah,
want
you
to have
can
a family, but your thought process to uh kids and stuff, right? That if they don't, how would they be there if they don't have consent to be there? Are they
also
fake?
creating a conscious agent isn't immoral. You can create a conscious agent. The only thing that happens is that as soon as it's created, it would be given its own world with the same level of adult intelligence. Now, could that being then consent to be a child and reduce its intelligence level to be a child that you experience childhood under your care? Absolutely. So like you can create joint worlds with another individual and create the world however you want together, and both consent to be in a world of whatever rules you agree upon. And can other human beings who conscious agents you create then consent to become a part of that world as your children? Absolutely. So yes, all of those things are possible.
You're kind of taking all the fun out of it.
How so?
Like, well, I mean, isn't that the enjoyment of making babies is so that like you
can
get to
force a
create,
conscious agent to do what you will and design
you
it in your
create a
nature.
child, like, you know, being able to create a child and then watching them. I mean, I have two of my own, right? So in watching them become who they are, right? The little people they are into the big people they are, and then watching them grow, right? You're saying I could get some like adult conscious who wants to agree or consent to be a child, right? But then wouldn't they lose their knowledge? And so then they couldn't technically consent beyond that after they become a child. And then what if they wanted to go back? And then they couldn't technically consent to going back. It kind of breaks its own rules.
Well, no. So like if you you can create a conscious agent, there's nothing immoral about creating a conscious agent. So you can create a being, but that being wouldn't start as an incapacitated, unable to consent thing that you get to control. It would start as its own individual entity that has all of the rights as every other entity. And now you can say, where are your parents? And if you would like, we would invite you to be our child. And if you can ask if that would prefer to be in a state like average biological evolution, where it's limited in its intellectual capacity, and it can consent to that. Now, it can consent to being through the full 18 years of childhood or whatever, and just be your child. Or it can say, I'm going to consent until I don't like it anymore, and then I'm going to go back to my old world, and that's fine too. So all of those are options. There's no problem with any of those. So I'm not seeing where the issue is.
It removes the whole family unit of like, why would I need?
How does that?
Why would I need? Why would I need? Why would I even need a spouse? I could just create things.
What's wrong with that? So why would
you're just making shit up? I'm not yelling at you, but you're just making shit up. I'm just creating, like, making shit up out of nothing, and then being like, "Will you be my child?" Like,
you mean like God did?
God made one thing, and then it like let us humans create more things after that.
So he made shit up.
He made one thing, and then he let us have like free will to choose a spouse and to create children and a family unit together on our own, and create our own legacy. There's no legacy in what you have. There's no meaning. If everything is just to sit around and, I can be at the beach all day and drink margaritas, and I have nothing that I have to do. I'm just going to live in this beautiful life of, I don't know, beautiful things all the time. Like, where is my goal? Where's my will to live? Just to sit around and I don't know, like, do whatever. There's no meaning. There's no meaning or purpose to it. If my purpose is to have a lineage and create babies and make babies and then watch my babies make babies, but with what you're like I'm just making shit up and then being like, will you be my baby? Right. There's no like, I actually in my body created that thing, and that thing has my DNA, and that thing has pieces of me, and then pieces of my parents, and then pieces of my grandparents, and then pieces of my great grandparents, right? There's the only thing you're creating is like I don't know, push a button and boop, there's a conscious being, by the way. How is it like you? It's not like you. There's no lineage. There's no, what's the fucking end goal? What is the meaning?
Well, so as you mentioned earlier, so God made up a system. It's just made shit up. And in this system, your child is limited by your biology. It has your DNA, as you mentioned. Is that moral? No, it isn't. It isn't moral to say, I like me. I like the way I am so much that I'm going to impose myself onto another conscious agent that didn't consent to it. So if I'm short, say I'm short or fat or whatever, and I have kids and they're predispositioned through genes to be short and fat, is that moral? Because I have a purpose, I have a meaning that I want to impose myself on another conscious agent. Is that moral? Clearly no. Should that being have the freedom to decide for themselves what kind of body they want, what kind of emotional triggers they want, what kind of purpose and meaning they want? Absolutely they should. So the only difference in these worlds that I'm describing is you seem to be predisposed to think that purpose and meaning can only be that which God gave you, because in the God-given world, you have purpose and meaning that he divined onto it. But in this world, if you want that, you can have it. You can just choose to consent to be in exactly the world as he designed it. But for people who don't agree, they don't find meaning in your world. The people who think that their meaning and purpose are not in the Christian worldview, they would be able to find their own meaning and purpose in their own worlds, unconstrained by the slavery of Christianity. So I don't find any issues with your interpretation of meaning and purpose. If you want those, you can have those 100%. Go for it. If you want to have a biological child, go for it. And you can have genes, go for it. The only difference is that you can't force that on everyone else. That's the only thing I'm advocating for. So you keep giving up these examples of, oh, but what, I can't do this. I can't suffer. I can't work. I can't find purpose in me. No, you can have all of those things. The only difference is that the people who don't see the world that you do, or see the world the way you do, can choose to opt out of the Christian slavery world. That's the only difference.
Wouldn't you have to accept it as Christianity and not just like, because you said there was like a naturalistic pantheism, right? So that's assuming there's no Christian God. So let's pretend that there's no Christian God. There's no God of any sort whatsoever, and we're all just made from nature, so on and so forth. They're not giving up the Christian slavery thing. They're giving up them and who they are as a human.
I did not understand the question. So one, there's nothing special about being a human. Like, well, you could be a fish if you want. Go for it.
Okay, but where, like, if you're just taking a conscious and then you're going to create new consciousness, how do you say that? Consciousness out of that, like those are just popping up out of thin air. Are they like AI generated? Are they computer generated? Where are these consciousness are?
Same way God did it. He snapped his fingers and poof, they existed.
Well, I mean, I came from DNA and the little cells and did things, and then biology created me, and then I was born out of my,
sure, physics.
Like, yeah. But what you're doing is I don't understand how you're saying that we could just poof snap. How do you create a consciousness?
Consciousness. Yes. So there's this thing in physics and philosophy called a Boltzmann brain. A Boltzmann brain is a consciousness that just pops into existence from fluctuations in quantum mechanics. Essentially, like, the physics in your brain isn't unique. It doesn't require thousands of years, millions of years of evolution and 9 months as a baby. That doesn't required for your brain at all. Like, you don't need any of that. We can make a brain in a computer, or we can make a brain out of crystals, or we can make a brain out of water tubes. It doesn't make a difference. Your brain and consciousness is a system of patterns and recognition and interaction. It doesn't need to be biological. It doesn't need to be born. It doesn't need to be cells. Like, all of those things are just what we know of because it's what the world we live in. None of those things are required. That's just the things we interact with.
Is that personality too? Like who you are as a person and traits? And But you're saying I could just change this. So like I could just change things as I want to later.
Yes, I mean we could literally do that right now. You just stick something in your brain, an electrode. It happens all the time. Phineas Gage is a great example of that.
Do you think humans would be better, or I mean, I guess maybe humans, but conscious, I can't say the word.
Consciousnesses
would be better off being able to just change into something else, or I'm not happy with this, I want to do something else, or I'm not happy with that and do something else. Do you think at what point is there a point of satisfaction?
Well, you can set satisfaction too. Like that's just another setting in your brain. So if you want to be satisfied with what you are, you can just turn that on. If you don't, turn it off. You can just set it to whatever you want. But so it doesn't really make sense to say our ability to change things would make us unsatisfied in some way. I don't understand that argument. But your previous question, would this be a good thing? Well, let's answer that in a different way. Do you think it would be a good thing if we created consciousnesses that were not free to choose for themselves, that they were tied to cancer, that were tied to being eaten alive by lions or parasites or viruses, or kids born with HIV? Is that a good thing? Is it good to have that limitation? Is it good to be born with elephantism or leukemia or genetic diseases that make you incapable of thought? Is that a better situation than giving conscious agents the right to choose for themselves?
Well, I guess they can consent to all of that jazz if they wanted to.
Sure.
But I don't know, it's cheating. Like you're cheating the system. You're just creating your own little world of
How is that cheating?
It's assumed to be perfect. I mean, isn't that kind of I don't know, you got to have some flaws to find the perfection.
Sure, but
I mean,
why
nobody wants bad things, right? Nobody wants bad things, but bad things happen, right? And that's kind of like the roll of the dice for who you are and where you're from. But you're creating like this, like literally, perfect world where nothing bad happened. But I mean, is that even a reality to say that nothing bad happened? Because what are you tapped into? Like, is something else able to interfere? Is something else able to do this or do that? You say we have rules, but then we could also still have loopholes and weird stuff built into that as well.
There's no real loopholes. Like the rule is nothing can happen to you that you don't consent to. If you consent to it, any of the bad things can happen. Like nothing in this world says no bad things can happen. It just says nothing non-consensual can happen.
What's the purpose?
A perfect moral world. That's the purpose. The purpose is to have a world where you're not enslaved by things you didn't consent to. Like why would, if you ask what is the purpose of a world where you're not confined by things you didn't consent to, you could ask the alternative question. What is the purpose where conscious beings are constrained by lots of things they didn't consent to? What is the purpose?
If we all got what we wanted, we'd be assholes. We'd be bigger fucking assholes. Like we would be bigger. Like what? To me, there's no more meaning. If I can just do this and color my hair, change my eyes, find a new body, do this, do that, like create a whole, I don't know, house. What you were saying, I just have a whole house. Like that's meaningless to me. I didn't earn it. I didn't make it. I didn't build it. I didn't produce it. Like I just did this.
Well, you said something really important there. You said to me. That's the key part. You said it's meaningless to me. Now, I'm fine with that. That's okay. If you think meaning and purpose comes from strife and suffering that you didn't want, you can consent to a world of strife and suffering to experience what you define as meaning. You could spend 1,000,000 years being an asshole and just snapping your fingers and be like, you know what? I think meaning would be found in this Christian world that God designed, and you can consent to go experience those things. But again, the only difference here, people who disagree, people who think that meaning and purpose is sitting on the beach all day, drinking margaritas and playing video games, and who don't agree with your definition of meaning, they have the freedom to choose for themselves in my world, where they don't in your world. So the hidden assumption in everything you're saying isn't that I'm taking away your freedom to have meaning and purpose in the way that you design it, because clearly you can consent to go do that in my world. The hidden assumption is that you're saying, I don't want anyone else to have that freedom. They are not allowed to have that freedom because there's no meaning and purpose. So I'm going to stop them from having that freedom because I don't think it's right.
It's not that it's right. Isn't that almost more? I feel like it's more immoral to like remove a purpose. I'm purposeless.
Well, no, again, I'm saying everyone gets to define their own purpose, and you don't get to tell them what their purpose is. That's the difference. So I'm not taking away their purpose. I'm saying you don't get to tell them what their purpose is. Because that's what you're doing, is you're saying, no, you're taking away their purpose that I think they have. I think they have this purpose, and you're taking that away from them. You're stealing their enslavement to my ideology away so they don't have to do what my Christian worldview tells them that they have to do anymore. Like, yes, I'm definitely doing
I don't even think I'm coming at it from a Christian, even as just human biology. Like, we are humans. We have to have purpose. I mean, you could even show that with like men die younger if they, like the sooner they retire and the least productive they are, they actually die sooner, right? And I understand you're saying like, well, there's no death. Well, like, you just like, what are you doing all day? What do you do? What is your goal? What is, like, I'm just a thing, then I'm just gonna snap, make shit things, and then sip margaritas. Like, does it overpopulate? Will it overpopulate? Will it even go to extinction if everyone's like, you know what? I'm kind of bored. Like, nothing going on here. Like, at what point, like, I don't know. Where's the end goal here with this perfect world?
There are 3 points there. The first one was the biological one, saying that because our biology causes us to respond in certain ways doesn't mean that's a purpose. Like, your body responds in lots of negative ways to a lot of bad things. That doesn't mean that it's your purpose to obey your biology. That's just a naturalistic fallacy. You don't just go say our biology makes us do this way, therefore it's our purpose. Clearly, no. Clearly that's wrong. Secondly, what's the purpose? The purpose is like what you mentioned earlier. When we're watching children and watch them develop and discover who they are as people, if you have infinitely much time and you can spend 1 billion years on a beach drinking margaritas, then eventually you're gonna be like, you know what, I kind of want to try something else. Let's try some added hard things. Like, let's try the Christian worldview. You're going to experiment with lots of different experiences, good and bad, and try a variety of different things and have a much deeper understanding of yourself and reality and philosophy and everything, because you have infinite time to experiment and really figure out what you like. That's the purpose. The purpose is exactly what you're talking about as a kid, is you want to discover who you are. And the best way to discover who you are is to have the freedom to experience the things that you want to experience and not be trapped in a biology or a world you didn't consent, because then you're not discovering who you are. You're discovering who you are when you're entrapped in a cage you didn't consent to.
Have you ever heard of like procrastinators, and then people who operate under like deadlines better, like people who procrastinate up to the last 10 minutes and then magically I can get everything done in that last 10 minutes because I work better under pressure, kind of thing?
Sure. Cortisol relations. Yes.
Yeah. I feel like I'm looking at it from a perspective of, okay, I have eternity to try all of these different things, but I mean, I could do it this 1,000 years, or I could do it next 1,000 years. And I mean, I'm wondering if people actually would utilize that time. I mean, we have, you could see this now, even like we have, I don't know, like how do I want to say that?
Well, I understand what you're asking. The answer is, if people don't want to do anything and they just want to live on a beach, they have a right to make that choice. Most people don't. That's a very minority thing to do. Most people experiment, especially when they have infinite time and aren't constrained by work that they have to go to that they didn't consent to, and they don't have to accommodate biological needs like food and housing. When they just have freedom, they usually explore stuff. That's what we know from video games. If you have infinitely many free video games to just go explore, you usually explore a whole bunch of them. You don't just like, I'm just gonna sip martinis. No, they go and explore. The reason people sip martinis is because they usually have to spend a whole lot of time doing stuff they don't want to do. because they didn't consent to the world they're in, like work and
Okay.
feeding kids and doing stuff they don't want.
Now, initially you're saying these consciousnesses are going to come from humans, essentially, and just tap in, right? You said originally we can choose to tap into this perfect world or not, and then we could take our consciousness and so whoop, right?
Sure.
Like any consciousness that would be not regenerated, I guess, generated from that. Where is like who gets to make that? Are all consciousnesses the same? Or are they all running the same? Or are they different? How do you what makes them different?
Well, there's lots of things that can make them different. The only thing that's the same is that there's a minimum requirement of consent. They have to be able to consent, which means intelligence, certain levels of knowledge, those kinds of things are like the minimum standard. And then everything else, they can start with a random set. I don't care. Do whatever you want with personality differences. The only difference is they get to then reset them however they want.
So essentially, there's you could make like a default. Who's making these people? Or consciousnesses?
Reality. So it'd be your version of God. These are physics.
I mean, is there overpopulation? Are they? What if they?
Well, think about it like this way. If you ask God, is there overpopulation in heaven? What are you going to do, God? He's going to I'm going to snap my fingers and create infinitely many more space. So no,
well, heaven's not physical though. Heaven's not like being here on, what I'm saying is here on earth, right? For a God, I cannot say that word. In this perfect world, you say like physics just creates it. It's something happens and it creates. But what if the system says, like, I don't know, flaws itself and says, well, this consciousness didn't consent to even being made. Therefore, I'm not going to make any more. Because it's not consenting to being made. How do you make that? Like, how do you make that?
So an immorality is any involuntary imposition of will, forcing someone to do something they didn't consent to doing. Now, if no one exists, you can't force them to do anything. So if there's a non-existent entity, they don't exist, to create them wouldn't be an imposition on their will because there was no will to impose upon. So would creating something, a person, an entity that didn't exist and then making them exist, would that be an imposition on the non-existing will? No. So would that be a violation of the principle? No, it would not be a violation of the principle. Because again, the principle is that it is immoral to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing. And if they don't exist, there is no one to impose upon.
Oh, Lord. Like my head's exploding here. I feel like the steam's coming out of my ears. I mean, we're humans. I understand you're creating a whole nother perfect world, but like a perfect world. But if it's a perfect world, I don't know. I think perfection is in fact imperfection. And that's what makes things perfect.
And that is totally fine for you to think for you, but it's not fine for you to impose that on every other conscious agent who doesn't agree.
See, this is where people have to just fucking deal with it. Deal with what you're given. Work with what you got. If you want something better, make it happen. Figure it out.
Yeah, that's called slavery. That's not moral. So I mean, I agree that's how reality is.
I would be a slave to my own decisions, though. I would be a slave to my own decisions. Now, okay, maybe I am born with I don't know,
cerebral palsy, quadriplegic, cancer, AIDS, I don't know, without legs, mental retardation. Take your pick.
But they wouldn't even have the consent anyways.
And whose fault would that be?
They were born that way. You said children don't even have consent anyways.
Right. And so making a world where children are born with cerebral palsy and cancer and AIDS is pretty bad. Like whoever made that world has got to be pretty bad. Like clearly, if we want to say, let's imagine what a perfect world would be like, we wouldn't be like, you know what? kid born with AIDS. This is a thing we want in the perfect world. No, we definitely don't want that in the perfect world. We need a world that doesn't have that for sure for it to be a perfect moral world. Like if we're trying to impose a morality on AI to make sure it creates a good world, one of the things we want to make sure it does not allow is for babies to be born with AIDS. That is one of the things we're like, no, cure them all before they're born. 100%. Definitely don't do that, because if a world like that is created, whoever did it is really bad.
Then wouldn't we focus our energy and time on making our current world as perfect as we can possibly make it, so that babies aren't born with these features, so that we can give them their own chance to become their own person on their own as much as humanly possible, instead of worrying about, and I'm not saying you're trying to create a perfect world, but like that would be my focus, is fix what we have, you know?
Right. That would be the second step. As I mentioned earlier, that the goal is to first, we have to define what the perfect world would be like. And then once we know that, we can then go back and say, all right, how do we, from our starting position, move closer to that perfect world? So I agree. Like the pragmatic application is, how do we move closer to the perfect world? But to do that, we first need to know, what is the perfect world? Is it the Christian worldview? Clearly not. We definitely shouldn't work towards that. And so once we know what the perfect world is, a world without AIDS babies, then we can start moving towards that world. Like if we're trying to emulate, if we tell AI to essentially emulate the Christian worldview, that would be really bad. That would be, no, definitely do not want to do that for lots of reasons. So having a standard that says, yeah, okay, here's all the things God got wrong that we should do better, do that stuff instead, is a much better way to guide us towards a better world than to say, do what the Bible says.
All right. I'm going to leave it to the panel, but this is more of a conversation than I expected based on where we started. And I love it. This is exciting because not very many people can fry my brain on here, but you have succeeded, sir. So kudos to you. Quick shout out, Tootie Bug sending the big 20, says, let's get those donuts up, y'all. Yeah, shout out to Tootie Bug. Thank you so kindly. And Calvin coming in with the big 5, and he asks if TJump feels trapping life in a body that gets old and suffers. If T feels, does that mean he will not procreate? And if he has kids, which you don't have to answer, that is a personal question if you don't want to, does that make you immoral?
If I do have kids, no. So again, like I said, creating conscious agents isn't immoral. If kids are born into a world and like I designed the world to make them suffer, that would be immoral. But simply me being in a world and creating kids isn't immoral. So I would say that the person who's immoral for creating kids with cancer is the one who designed the world, not you for being in the world and trying to create kids.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Tom, are you ready to meet your panel, sir? I've got a lot of lovely people hanging backstage interested in this conversation.
How lovely. Let's see the first lovely person. I'm going to rate their loveliness.
Oh, we're just going to bring them all up. Get ready. Here we go. And we'll go through one at a time with them up here. Here we go.
Oh, the kitties win the lovely points.
I love cats. I'll tell you what. Oh my God, they're kittens. Hold on. Let's do a brief kitten commercial break.
The cats.
They're so cute. I'm going to have, we're going into full kitten mode later, by the way, Balderson, on the gauntlet. All right. So I've got a pope. I've got.
It could mean so many things.
priest. We've got everybody here ready to go, having a good time. Now, if you all remember, to all of my guests, we move this one at a time for the first portion. Once you all get your Q&A in one at a time, then we'll move into full gauntlet mode and it will be open floor. So I'm going to ask everyone else except for myself and Tom to mute your mics, please. And you're going to be on standby. And we're going to go ahead. And also, if you're doing insults or whatever, save that for open panel. It's serious inquiries first. Spin City, I'll start off with you, sir. I know Omar was back there. Where the hell did he go? Spin City, you want to...
I've got it. You got to kick me and come back. I'm hearing every other word. I'm sorry,
Okay,
Sarah.
no problem. No problem. Tech difficulties always happen.
She's like, I would love nothing better than to kick you.
I always have to kick him. All right, Clay, let's kick off with you, sir. I know you are deep diving into probably the Christian realm, or at least there is a God realm. So I'd be interested to see your commentary on this and questions. Go ahead.
Sir, thank you. I consider
you on the wrong mic, Clay. Or you're
am I?
Really? Hold on, I'm gonna at least turn you down or something. There you go. Go ahead, Clay.
Test. Very good. Okay. Thank you. First off, I think you're bold and brave to come up here and speak about this sort of thing. Objective morality from an atheist standpoint. I was looking for that. And I'm finding difficulty in finding where your point is in what you consider objective morality. It sounded like you were more talking about how that there's not morality in this life, in this reality that we have, because of the way it is, because of health and death and things that already exist. So I'm really kind of finding it hard to understand where it is you're going with your what you would call objective morality. What is your objective morality? I know you said consent, but the problem I'm having with that is that some people don't deserve to be able to consent to everything.
So I'm not quite understanding part of your question, because you said this world has suffering, therefore there's no morality in it. Well, I mean, as a Christian, I assume you think that's wrong, because God is morality, and so clearly there's morality in a world of suffering. It's just grounded in a different thing. So morality is the principles that determine right from wrong. Objective morality means those principles are stance independent of any opinions. That's all it means. Now, there's two parts to your question. One is that where is morality in our world, and what grounds morality? So like what grounds morality is like a law of physics, like gravity in my naturalistic pantheism. The fundamental laws aren't a mind, it's physics. So morality is just a law of physics like any other law of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, quantum fields, whatever. And how it applies in the here and now is that morality, like a field like gravity, interacts with all of this, but it doesn't force everyone to be moral, just like you're not forced to stand on the ground. You can jump, you can wiggle. Gravity doesn't force you into a black hole. There's a spectrum of how much it affects you.
Well, there is a limitation, though, correct?
Sort of, yes.
There's a speed limit. So
sure.
Good and bad would have a limit if that's the case as well.
Right. You can't commit infinitely many crimes. You can't steal from everywhere all at once.
So not everything deserves consent.
That has absolutely nothing to do with the previous point. So the fact that you can't do infinitely many crimes is not related to deserving consent. Every conscious agent deserves consent.
Not every action is consentable.
Well, sure. There's rape
crimes.
or whatever. Rape is
crimes,
literally a non-consenting action. So there are things that are non-consenting actions. You can't consent to those because by definition they're non-consenting.
Right. So the person who believes that it's okay if his universe is the one that's being created, then where's the consent there if it's not a consentable action?
So he can create rules in his universe, his specific own world, however he wants. But for someone to enter that world, they would have to consent to all of his rules. So they would have to agree to them.
But then you're not living in reality.
That is exactly the same as reality. Reality has rules. Reality is interactable? Like, which part of that isn't reality?
Well, reality
It's
is
reality?
ruled by physics.
Right, and that would be an added law of physics in the best of all possible worlds.
Right. So we don't live in that unreality. We live in a reality of physics.
Right. We don't live in a perfectly moral world right now. Absolutely, I agree.
Right. So then that's just an attack on someone who believes that there's goodness outside of this reality.
No. So I'm telling you what the moral standard would be. Like if I say you can do crimes right now, does that mean God doesn't exist? Like clearly you'd be like, well, no, because God is like a standard that's over there. He's not here in everything we do. He's not.
But you're not arguing from your stance. You're arguing against God. You see what I'm saying?
No, naturalistic pantheism is my stance. Morality is my stance.
So argue
God
from
is a
your
comparison.
stance.
What?
So argue from your stance, not against God.
I did.
That's what I'm saying. I don't believe you are, but I'm going to leave it to other people. I want to give time. So thank you, Sarah.
So my stance is naturalistic pantheism, and I use God as a comparator to that, but I'm arguing from my view, yes.
I know.
Perfect. All right. I will hand it over to Effigy. If you'd like to jump on in, comment, question, go for it.
Yes. So I'm not going to go on too long because I'm here mostly for the chaos that all the theists will bring, fellow atheists here. Big fan, TJump. Love your debate against presuppositionalists. That's always really, really good stuff. One of my questions on this, and one of the reasons I don't usually go into this kind of idea of objectivity, as far as like morals or just, physical brain states, because it seems like you just end up right back at the kind of is ought question, right? Because you're making more of a claim of what we do, and we're in kind of an argument of people who are arguing what we ought do. So it just seems like we get right back to there again. So how do you square that with what you're saying as far as like it being a completely like from physical idea?
Well, there's a bunch of parts to that question. One is that in academia, in secular academia, moral realism is the consensus. Most academic atheist philosophers believe in moral realism. The is ought question, there's lots of different ways to address that. One is that it's just not a real problem. You can just say moral facts are truths and the oughts are something we add later. They're not really important. It's a fact that X is wrong. The fact that you ought to do X is just something we say after the fact that we know it's true. So you don't really need the oughts. You can actually apply the Euthyphro dilemma to that and say, is something good because you ought to do it, or ought you do it because it's good? If you have to do it because you ought to do it, it doesn't make any sense. It's subjective. If you ought to do it because it's good, that means there's independent facts that determine why it's good, and the oughts are an addition later. So you can solve the is ought dilemma by showing the oughts are hypothetical and not categorical. Most academic philosophers who are atheists do believe in moral realism. It can be grounded in just like nature or a priori facts of rationality, like logic is. Logic exists as a system of relations, even though it doesn't physically exist, but it's still there objectively. 1 + 1 = 2 objectively. And so there's lots of different ways to ground logic and morality in a purely physical world, and that's like the consensus in academia.
I fucking love that answer.
Sure.
Yes.
I knew you would enjoy this one, Effigy.
I'm right there with you. I don't think the is ought is an actual problem. I think logic is conservative, and you don't get out of it what you don't put into it. So you have to agree to morals before you ever apply logic, in a way. Yeah, I'm good. You can go on to the theist. That's going to be where the real fun is. And guys, if you didn't understand what you just said, it's going to be a long fucking night for you.
Oh, thank you, Effigy. Mr. Gibbs, Father Gibbs, what you got going on? To you, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I got to fix my thing now. Of course, it messes up right when you come to Papa Gibbs. The Reverend Admiral Gibbs is here. I am here to say that, it's obvious to anybody with half a brain that history proves definitively that morality is not objective. All right. Because we have right here on this panel, we have a variety of different Christians. We have an Odinist or a Thorist or whatever they're calling themselves nowadays up there. I'm sure Balderson will tell you all about it. But his beliefs and morals are definitely different than mine. And I even have different morals than the churches, that I've come up with. And, and thank God that, God willed disease to happen. Thank God smallpox existed. Thank God cancer existed. And, if there's no God and all these diseases have a chance of evolving over time into multi-cell organisms and into animals, they all started from something somewhere, right? And they would have their own moral concepts. The idea that an octopus might be sentient, they're going to have a different sort of morality, right, than we are, unless there's a God, right? The idea that it's not subjective is just ridiculous, right? I mean, thank God that disease exists. And this was actually God's will, because if the Aztecs hadn't been subjected to disease of the Spanish and had managed to get the tech, there wouldn't be any Muslims today. There wouldn't be any Christians. They would have been sacrificing them and turning them into pozole and eating them. And they would have been wearing their skin as like their leather, as their nice duds, because guess what? They aurifarmed. And they aurifarmed with their victims. And it was very impressive. And they built pyramids to the sky for this. The Incas, they believed in child sacrifice as well.
Do we have like a time limit on these?
I'm almost done, bitch. You can talk in a second. You got a whole hour.
Be respectful. It's the first portion. Start gentle. Start gentle.
I'm going to tirade. This is epic. This is better than anything that's been said so far by you today. And so finally, thank God for diseases. This is how we know morality is not objective. And the only truth is through our risen Lord and Savior. And guess what? Speaking of him, Osiris and Dionysus, they came before and archetypes of Jesus as well. And guess what? People will sit there and worship them. And they had vastly different moralities. I don't know if you know anything about Dionysus, but his morality is a lot different than Jesus. And he's credited to the person. And that's it. I'm done.
So just to clarify, just to clarify, your argument was lots of people have different views, therefore what they have views about is subjective.
Well, that was one portion of it. And if you didn't get all the other portions of it, then guess what? It's going to be a long night for you in the words effigy.
So there are flat earthers. Does that mean that the shape of the world is subjective?
That means that they are retarded, first of all. And secondly, them believing that proves that morality is not objective, because they are stupid enough to believe something despite science coming up and hitting them in the face with it.
Okay, so the question was
you're welcome.
Is the shape of the Earth subjective?
I mean, I would argue possibly, depending on if we're in a computer program, and then somebody could just change the shape via ones and zeros like that, and they would be fundamentally a god. So yeah, maybe we are subjective, maybe we are objective. I don't know.
Okay, so the question,
but as far as our laws of physics, no, it's not subjective.
Hold up.
I just answered your question. As far as those science,
hold on, let him respond.
Please ask me a question.
Does the fact that there are flat earthers who disagree about the shape of the Earth, does that fact alone make the shape of the Earth subjective?
No, but it does prove morality is objective.
So you agree that the fact that there are people who disagree doesn't make something subjective, right?
That was not in my argument at all, but sure.
We'll go there. So the fact that many people have different moralities and disagree about moralities doesn't prove that morality isn't objective, right?
No, in and of itself, no. But since people act on those moralities, and morality is not something concrete, because we have other sentient creatures, and you don't believe in God. If you don't believe in God, then nothing's concrete in that sense, and it's always up to science and whatever the social norms are. So no, it proves my point. Thank you for helping me prove my point.
Next.
No, you're welcome.
All right, Gibbs. Thank you. Dusty, to you, please.
I'm going to try to build on Gibbs. The fact of the matter is that good and bad are subjective to the individual, right? What's good for you and what's good for me may differ. I'd be better off having all of your money, but that wouldn't be good for you. So how do you make something? How do you make the outcome? How do you square that circle?
Morality isn't determined by what's good for you or good for me. Morality is a truth condition of the universe. So it's not like what helps one person is morally good. Morality isn't about what makes you feel good. It's about something truth about the universe. So if it's just because doing something might be good for you doesn't make it moral.
Okay, well, how is that truth then assessed if something's right or wrong?
With evidence, just like everything else.
Okay. And the evidence would indicate that we're different people. And so we're going to have different.
Our
different
peoples are irrelevant. The fact that our people is irrelevant to morality. The evidence of morality comes from moral convergence, moral progress, moral dilemmas, moral intuitions. The fact that morality and changes in morality over time are going in the same direction in all cultures, regardless, in all species, regardless of their starts and origins. If it was just evolutionary, we wouldn't expect that. So the fact there's convergence among species, among independent nations, among independent peoples, and it's all going in the same direction, and there's an abundance of evidence of this, is evidence against the idea that morality is subjective or evolutionary.
There's no, it's not. There's lots and lots of people think that Tom Hanks is a good actor, right? That doesn't mean that he doesn't suck dick. Lots of people's opinion appeal to it.
I didn't say lots of people. So there's a difference between lots of people and convergence. Convergence is a change over time. If we go back in time 1,000 years and we look at every culture and then we go forward 1,000 years, the changes are the same. That's the part that we're interested in.
So what is the objective metric that we're using to determine if an action is objectively right or wrong?
So we're looking at the pattern, just like in everything in physics. We see a pattern. We say, is this pattern going in one direction? Yes, this pattern is going in one direction. What can we use to describe that pattern? That is a law or a theory. And we say, if this law or theory makes predictions and those predictions are correct, we think this law or theory is true. So we're looking at patterns. We describe the patterns with a principle. We apply the principle to a law. Then we test in experiment. So the pattern is moral progress. The principle is moral realism. The experiments are in lots of different studies. And the conclusion is it's a real thing.
So the trend in human behavior patterns is what determines if something's moral or immoral?
It determines there's a pattern to morality that is objective, and something is causing that pattern. And if that something exists, it's an objective basis of morality.
So let's take Islam, which is a growing religion, and one with a massive amount of inbreeding, for instance. Then can we use your metric to conclude that inbreeding is moral?
If inbreeding was a pattern that held across all cultures and different species and had something to do with morality, sure, but it doesn't. So like, I have to follow the evidence.
I'll go on.
So the evidence is whatever happened in reality. So if whatever has happened in reality is indicative of truth, whatever I like it or not. No, I don't think it is. That's definitely not something. There's no evidence of that. It's just a bad example. But if it was, then I guess we'd have to.
I mean, how is that a bad example? It's a trend.
It's not a
trend. It's a growing trend of humans behaving in a certain way.
It's not a growing trend, and it's not in all cultures. So the point of moral progress is it happens in every culture, everywhere in the world, not just one culture. Is inbreeding happening or growing in every culture, everywhere in the world?
So it's still.
That was the question. Is it happening everywhere with every culture in every species everywhere in the world? Is it?
No.
So give
me an example.
Wait. Stop. So would that be evidence of an objective factor that is affecting all humans?
No, but I don't think that that's a good measure for objective morality, regardless, because it's subjective to individuals doing it, or it's incredibly rare. Like give me an example. Give me an example.
If it happens in every culture everywhere in the world, would it be an objective feature?
What is an example that you would bring up of something that meets those criteria?
Moral progress.
Okay. Give me an example of a moral wrong.
Slavery.
Okay. Slavery still exists.
So what?
In many cultures.
The fact that it exists doesn't mean that it's depreciating or that people are seeing it as more immoral over time. The fact as early we go back in time, the more farther we go back in time, the more people were accepting of it. And the further we go in time, the less people are accepting of it. So the trend is the perception of slavery is more immoral the more time we go throughout all cultures.
But you definitely can't say it's universal. It's not throughout all cultures. The Uyghurs.
Okay. I didn't say slavery was gone. I said the trend for perceiving slavery as moral has always been going down in every culture. That's universal. It's a universal.
So does it have to be all cultures or just trends in that direction? Because you're not applying the same standards to inbreeding that you are to slavery.
If the trend happens in all cultures.
The trend is not happening in all cultures for slavery.
The trend is happening in all cultures. Everywhere in the world. You can Google it. There's a ton
cannibalism. There are cannibalistic tribes still out there.
Again, so there are times when the weather is hot. Does that mean that global warming is false? No.
According to your standards, yes.
No. This is
All
basic
cultures.
science. No.
All cultures is what you said.
So there's a difference between a particular data point and a trend of data points. These are not the same thing. The fact that one person does a crime does not mean the trend of crimes is not going down.
We're not talking about a person. We're
That's
talking
what
about
you're
an
doing.
individual.
That's
We're
what
talking
you're
about
doing.
individual
Stop
cultures.
Stop talking.
We're talking
So
about
you are
individual.
stop talking. You're confusing.
My turn to talk as
stop
well
talking.
as yours.
Stop
Hold
talking.
on. Hold on.
Stop
Let Tom respond, please, and then you can go.
Tom's
if I
dancing.
say that, stop talking. If I say that the
Tom's
trend,
dancing.
stop talking.
Hold on,
I'm going to
Flo.
mute you
Just
on
hold
my
on.
end so no one can hear you. Shut up.
Go
Do
ahead and
not
tap
speak again.
dance.
Can you mute him for me?
Go ahead and tap dance.
If he does, if you don't mute him, bye bye.
Dusty, this is the controlled portion. Open.
All right.
Before
Mute
you
him.
do
Mute
that.
him. Mute him for me. Mute him for me.
Dusty,
I'm gonna run.
Just
Thank you.
hold
I'm gonna
on
run.
and let him respond, please.
He's being a bitch. Go ahead, bitch.
Kick
That's
him off the
fine.
stage. Kick
Think
him off the
that
stage. Kick him off the stage.
Dusty.
Last
Thank
warning,
you.
kick him off the stage or I'm not staying because I'm not interested in playing these games. All right. So if I say that the trend of murders is going down and you say, oh, but somebody was murdered in Chicago, that does not prove that there are less murders overall. The fact that you don't understand these statistics means you're just dumb. So if I say the trend of slavery is going down, you listing a case of slavery is not a counterexample.
All I heard
next
is you
person,
crying, bitch.
get him off the stage. I'm done talking to him.
Dusty,
You're kind of a
stop.
diva.
We'll move up. Hold on, Dusty. We'll move on.
Yeah,
to
he didn't like
Ant.
my
We'll
opening
move on
either.
to Ant. We'll move on to
No,
Ant.
you mentioned people I don't want to talk to.
You're crying,
Kick him,
dude.
kick him off.
Shut the
Kick him
fuck
off.
up
I want him
yourself
gone.
and let
I want him
somebody
gone.
else ask.
Dusty, hang backstage for a little bit. Ant, we'll go on with you, bud, if you want to ask your question.
Oh, geez. That was a lot. I want to just touch on something real quick. I'm not going to take up a lot of time. You said earlier that you believe or you envision morality to be as much of a physical truth as something as, say, gravity.
Yep.
Okay. I'd love to dig into that later. I don't have a real quick question about it right now, so I'm just going to yield my time.
Okay.
Okay, no problem, Ant.
I can comment on a little bit. So, like, the law of gravity is very weak force. It doesn't force anyone to do anything. There could be weaker forces that have very little effect, like on our minds or whatever. And so the law of morality could be something that just affects conscious agents very weakly and tends us to move in directions of morality with very little effect. And that would be a one possibility.
I guess we get into it later. I didn't want to. I have some ideas, but I don't want to drill down too deep on that just yet.
Okay, no problem. Omar, to you, please.
How's it going? I think people are missing like the, morality is objective or subjective, right? God or not God world, right? That's kind of like the paradigm that everyone seems to converge in, whether they're atheists. You can hear me okay, right?
Yep.
Whether they're atheists or whether they believe in a specific Abrahamic faith or whatever the case may be, it's God or not God. Morality is objective or subjective, right? So if it's objective, you would say it comes from a fabric like gravity, let's say, and you could be an atheist and hold that position, at which TJump similarly holds. Or you could say it's subjective, but then again, isn't God only objective? And if morality comes from God, then wouldn't that be part of God? And isn't it objective truth, regardless of your opinion of X, Y, Z? And so I think that the fun part of this would be sticking in that because when TJump's talking about best of all possible worlds, he's not. I don't think he ever made the claim that that's actually the real world where we can just be like, hey, I want to, because everyone's going to be fucking Brad Pitt, right? So that's not going to really make sense. And then I guess this one last thing would be to the people who think it's subjective, isn't the statement that morality is subjective itself an objective truth? That's it.
I don't think your last argument works though, because like for it to be self-contradicting, it would have to be an objective moral truth. So like if you'd say someone who believes that morality is subjective would have to say that all morality is subjective, and that would have to be a moral truth, not just a truth. They can still believe in objective truth.
No, they would be making an objective. There would be an objective truth statement that they would be making.
Right, but it wouldn't
morality.
be a moral truth. So there's a difference between an objective truth and objective moral truth. So they can make objective truth claims and believe objective truth exists. And one of those truths could be there is no objective morality. So there wouldn't be a contradiction. It would only be a contradiction if they said there is no objective truth of any kind, and then that statement would be an objective truth claim, which would be self-contradicting. But it doesn't work if they're saying.
Well, thanks for killing that. I'll move on to my next one for the other people. Thanks, TJump.
Thank you, Omar. Spin, I'll move it on to you, please.
I yield my comment to Mr. Balderson.
Sure, no problem. And of course, never least, but always last, only because that is your spot on this panel next to me. Mr. Balderson, please.
How's it going tonight? So basically, if you have your magical world where you've changed physics and things like that, everything's just whatever you want it to be, like a little kid's world.
There's nothing about that is a little kid's world. So you're an adult and you get to consent to your world, which would be exactly like this one if you consent to be in this one.
Right. I mean, I realize you're kind of trying to dress it up, but it's just basically everybody gets everything they want. So how's there even any morals in that? Everybody
Morality,
can do whatever they want. That's
morality,
not even a moral system to be had. If
morality,
everybody what they want, how is there a morality to be had?
What does the word morality mean? What's the definition?
It's a set of principles that you live by.
No, it's a set of principles that differentiate right from wrong. So if I say
presumably you would live by the ones that are right, and
what you live by is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what you live by. It's right or wrong whether you live by it. The live by it part is irrelevant. So morality is a set of principles that differentiate right from wrong. So if I say it's wrong to impose on people without their consent, that's a system of morality by definition. It's that simple. Whether or not you can choose to live how you want to live doesn't make it magically no longer moral because you don't like it. If you think,
well, I mean, the part where you had to change physics is what makes it magic.
I didn't say you had to change physics. I was giving an example.
You did say that.
No, I didn't. I said this is a definition of what the best of all possible worlds would be like. To get there, we would have to change physics. Obviously, there's no problem with that. That's not magic. That's just how definitions work.
That's literally magic.
No, that's not literally magic. That's physics. If you're changing the laws of physics, that's physics, and that's irrelevant to the
like if I say that I can go, if I say I can throw a fireball in like a wizard, but I say I'm just going to change the laws of physics so I can throw a fireball, it's still just fucking magic. Like you play really weird.
No, there's absolutely no part of anything I said that is in any way relevant to magic. What I gave was a definition of the best of all possible worlds.
Let the shit show begin.
Stop talking. Stop talking. So what I gave was a definition of the best of all possible worlds. To get there, we can't get there. We don't live in that world. That's not the point. You seem to be very confused with the idea that we need to be able to get there for my morality to have relevance. That's not the point. The point of the definition is to give a definition of what the perfect world would be like, which we can then use as a guide in our current world. The goal isn't to say we can get there. It's totally irrelevant. No part of anything I said was that relevant. So in this point, the point of why I was giving that was to give a definition of what a perfect world would look like. Also, you believe in a magic sky daddy who can literally do magic. So bringing up magic shouldn't be a problem for you.
He thinks I'm Christian. Let the shit show begin. Let the shit show begin. This dumb fucker's in for a world of pain.
Yeah.
The temper tantrum.
I told him he was golden, bro.
He's like, you shut up. You shut up. The temper tantrums.
You're equally as ignorant as
He's
one.
never going to survive 10 minutes in open battle.
All right. Everybody got their questions out. Let's go ahead. We'll start. We can maneuver into open floor. At least, guys, be mindful. When I ask you to stop talking, you stop talking. You may not like the guest or you may not like the way he engages with you, but you will respect me at the very, very least, because this is still my platform and I am still your host and I still have that button. If you don't listen to me when I ask you to stop, then you just go somewhere else. Okay? You all just witnessed that very moment. All right? So I'll go ahead and open the floor up. Balderson, you were already on a roll. If you wanted to finish that thought process, I'll let you go ahead.
No, that's a go ahead and move on.
All right. Okay. We'll kick it back over to Clay. Open us up.
Thank you. And I did say that you're very bold and brave for coming up here. You're not playing with kindergartners up here, my friend. This is a tried and true panel. What you're calling truth is bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Yeah, I do. It's your perspective. You're calling a perfect world your perfect world. But your perfect world, it's bullshit.
Do you have any evidence?
Yeah, it's your world. It's your world, my man. Tell me about your world. Tell me about your world. You're retarded. You're a scared little person who wants people to just shut up.
Insults.
You want people to not talk. You want people to not talk.
Still waiting for the
evidence. Your world exists of people not pushing back bullshit.
Still waiting for the evidence.
Scared. Run away. Run away, you little bitch. Run away. Run away to your perfect little world. Run away.
All right.
Baby.
There's nothing.
I have a question.
Fucking loser.
He said he's
I have a question.
I'm ready to say that I can't run. I'd be out of breath and my knee would give out. That's a fat
Calvin.
He said I'm not arguing with kindergartners, but he gave great examples of why I am. He just acted like a kindergartner.
No, you are a fucking loser, dude.
See, kindergarters.
This is open fucking panel. It's open season.
All right.
I do feel like I'm doing my Special Olympics duty every time I'm in here. So
I know, I do too. Calvin, why don't you go ahead and kick us off? I'm sure you actually have a question.
An actual point would be good. Yeah.
Yeah. So she read my question earlier. I don't think I got a sufficient answer to my question. I was the one that asked you, since you have this view on life, are you choosing not to procreate?
I haven't made a decision on that. So my goal isn't to act according to morality. My goal is to discover morality. So whether or not I'm a moral person is irrelevant.
Wait a minute.
Sure.
So you say, okay, so your immorality is not important at this point in time.
I didn't say anything like that. I said it's true. So it would definitely be important.
Okay.
But whether I'm a moral person doesn't affect the truth of the morality. So I do lots of immoral things. I eat meat, conscious beings. Animals are conscious beings. Okay. I kill them and eat them. That's immoral. So am I perfectly moral? No. But does that have anything to do with my morality being true? No, it's just irrelevant.
Well, yeah, it kind of does, because if you're calling out God or this, particularly God or whatever, and you're going to act like the person that you're calling out and condemning, then that kind of contradicts your whole, to me, concept. You can't.
How does that contradict anything? So if I say I do some immoral things like eating animals, and he does some immoral things like drowning millions of babies in the global flood, how does me pointing out that he's done immoral things not the case because I've also done immoral things?
I'm not saying that it's not the case. I'm talking about your actions.
Right. So how does my actions affect the truth of the morality? So say I discovered a mathematical fact, but I choose to gamble knowing that it's bad mathematically. Does that invalidate the mathematical fact I've discovered?
No, I think you're missing my point. My point, I'm in your world. I accept what you're saying. You're saying God is immoral. I'm there with you. Sure. My question is, why are you mimicking behavior that you deem is bad for God, the person that you're up here condemning? That's my question. That's why
I'm immoral too. What does that have to do with anything?
Okay, so you're immoral too. Okay, cool.
I never said I was moral.
Okay, cool. Okay, and then I had a second question. I don't want it. This is probably going to sound bad or whatever, but I don't want you to, promote anything. I'm not trying to promote anything like. Well, let me hear my question out. If you feel the world is as it is, or whatever the case may be, why do you choose to be here? Subject yourself to a lifestyle, to this living?
Because there's parts of it I like.
Okay. Cool. That's all my question for you, TJump.
Sure.
Thank you, Calvin. Floor's open, guys. Go ahead.
Can I ask everyone a question?
Sure.
Hi, everybody. Who do I say? Who do I give this to? Admiral Gibbs. How's it going, buddy? Question for you. Is slavery... You ready?
I'm ready.
Is slavery wrong? Objectively wrong?
Well, I would say no. because morality is not objective. However, if you're a Christian and you believe that there is a higher power or you're some other religion, and then, yeah, morality is subjective. So the only way that morality is subjective is if there's a higher power and they deem that. So yeah, I would say objectively, no. That's why cannibalism exists. That's why we have different forms of various beliefs that actually form effective governments.
No.
Like the Aztecs were obviously more powerful than almost anybody. Disease killed them. And disease actually might prove there is a God, because it seems like a long-term plan to make the Europeans tougher in order to wipe out the immoral aspects. That actually, disease in and of itself might prove morality is subjective. That's like that. Actually, that would debunk TJ Jump's point. But yeah, I actually, even though I am a Christian, I believe in a higher power. I would say, without proof of God definitively, then no, morality is not objective.
Did God create gravity?
Neither is slavery. Did God create gravity? Sure. If he exists, and as a Christian, I think he does, then I would say he does create it. But I'm arguing from non-religious standpoint. We can't argue religious standpoint.
No, forget about the religious. So was gravity exist before we were here to observe it?
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah.
And was slavery wrong before we were here to? Was slavery wrong before you and I existed?
Well, slavery was never wrong unless there's a higher power. So.
And is that objectively true?
Well, I would say that unless you believe there's a God, then there is no objectively true statement.
Okay, so objectively, it's true that slavery is wrong if God's real.
As far as morality is concerned.
So then God is subjective to you.
In this case, you might as well be God if you don't believe in a higher power, because therefore you are deciding what's moral.
So then God is a subjective truth to you. It's not God's not objective.
I would argue that in my case, yeah, God is a subjective truth to me. That's taken on faith. But if I'm arguing from a stance where I'm not arguing the religious aspect of witnessing to people, then I'm going to argue that morality is not objective, because anybody can choose their own subjective truths.
All right. Well, I mean, you're a very good atheist preacher if you think that God is subjective. All right. I guess I should have.
I'm a man of many contradictions.
Yes, you are, sir. Okay. Well, someone else can continue.
Fair enough. Pass coming in with let me interrupt in just a moment. Pass coming in with the membership for 17 months. That's a long time. Family is the key to happiness and fulfillment. They are the ones who support you, inspire you, and love you unconditionally. Thank you, Pass. We love you so much. And then Texas Bully Mama with the Big 10 says, shh, everyone stop talking. Just kidding. And then, of course, Fourth Wiseman in with the Big 10 says, hi, everyone. I've been here for 5 minutes listening while making coffee. TJump, if I was you, I'd change the vocabulary you use, i.e. stop talking. Otherwise, you'll get the final stop talking dollar boot. Well, Fourth Wiseman, the only thing I have to say is TJump is the guest of the evening, so he is unbootable. Everyone else is. So I don't know which way that turns your direction there, but you can't boot him. You cannot boot him. But thank you so much, Fourth. We appreciate you. And backstage, I do have Tony Drake and Duck hanging out back waiting. If you'd like to see either of them up here, you know what to do. You have to pay a measly $10 to boot anyone up here off the screen. And of course, if somebody's annoying you, bothering you, whatever, or you just don't like them because they look funny, you can send in $10 too and send them to backstage to wait while somebody else comes up. All right, floor's back to you guys.
I would like to disagree. You can 100% boot me. You just have to send my PayPal $100 and you can boot me 100%.
I got a question. You're going too cheap. Let me tell you about Sarah here. Let me tell you something. I know you don't have to believe it, but we got Sarah on a DJ panel the other day, and these fuckers paid her $300 for 3 fucking White Claws, and then paid her another $150 to leave. So you ain't way too low there. You've already said it. So now you got to stick with it.
I'll stick with it 100%.
As much as I am disagreeing with you, and I really do believe you are a little bitch, I do not want you to go. You, sir, are the money. You're the money shot. For real. Yeah.
With this
lots of ditty and lots of homo.
I got a question for T-Dump. T-Dump up there. Do you really believe the shit that's coming out of your mouth, bro? Seriously.
Yes.
Find Jesus and repent, brother.
I can't believe in beings who drown
all that
millions of
time.
babies.
That's what you had, Spin. After all
That's
that
what. That's
time.
all he says every time. Now he's gonna start calling him gay.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's why he always passes on his turn during the first portion, because he already knows I'm going to yell at him for it. So
I'm sorry, bro, but I can't believe. No, that is an honest question. So you believe the shit that's shoveling out of your mouth? Tell me why.
Same question
because
twice.
the evidence supports it, unlike the talking donkeys and unicorns and dragons in the Bible.
But why should we believe you?
You shouldn't believe me. You should believe the evidence. Don't believe me.
It was an actual.
You're the one presenting the evidence.
So I would never say believe me. Confirm the evidence for yourself.
Presenting the evidence.
Sure,
You're the one here, Throwdown Thursday, presenting the evidence. And
Prove
you're saying, believe me.
You have this magic power called Google, and you can check it on your own.
No.
Wait
a minute. You come to a debate, and you want to throw the research on somebody else.
No, that is not what I said. I said don't believe me.
What you're shoveling.
No,
no.
I was answering his question. Stop talking. I was answering his question. He asked, "Do I think you should believe me?" The answer is no. You should never believe an individual presenting information. You should check the information for yourself always. Now, I think I'm presenting good information, and I think you should check it independently. You shouldn't believe me. It would be very foolish for you to believe me.
TJump.
Yeah.
The rule that Sarah
kind of stupid, bro.
It's pretty reasonable to say check the research for yourself. That's a pretty rational thing to say. You got your head up your ass.
Go ahead, Saint.
TJump. The rule that Sarah has on the panel and in chat, if you make a claim, you got to prove it. That's her. Those are her rules.
Yes, and I was presenting evidence the entire time. So
no,
you were not.
You were talking. You were talking. You didn't prove. You didn't prove anything. You didn't show us any evidence.
How do you? Hold on. How do you prove like a philosophy morality debate? Like, I mean, like we could point to examples, and I know I'm going to as we get into this. But like, how do you definitively prove like a nothing? Like,
so I literally said this earlier. The way you prove something is you look at a pattern, you create a principle to describe the pattern. You put a
we don't scientific method. I'm trying to help you. But never mind.
Hey!
Stop speaking.
Stop. Everybody stop. Listen, when you ask somebody a question, you have to give them room to answer it. Okay, you have to. And I will demand the same thing that comes back the other way, but you have to give them fucking room to answer the fucking question. Thank you.
Yeah,
go ahead.
All right. So the way you prove something in philosophy is you look at a pattern in reality, you create a principle to describe the pattern, you apply the principle to a theory or hypothesis, and then you test it with testable predictions in reality to say if that is confirmed or denied. So
I'm glad.
Go ahead.
I'm glad that you're explaining the scientific method. I mean, I attempted to assist you there before you tried to shush me. Like, I understand like what the method is, but like, you jumped too fast, like, and you didn't even know what side I was on there. And like, I said, but like, hey, okay, here's the thing. Even with that, you still can't prove like a metaphorical concept. Like, you might be able to point to some evidence, and people can do the same thing for God. They can do the same thing for other things, like theology, like I don't know, all sorts of shit. But like in this case, you're not going to be able to definitively prove the way I could prove, like, I don't know, that atoms exist. You understand the problem here? Like,
no, what do you mean by metaphorical concept?
All right, I'm going to let you get back to this, and then we'll come back to that. But,
well, so like the first example that comes to mind when you talk about
I didn't want to jump your thing, Steve. Sorry, go ahead.
So you said you can't prove a metaphorical concept. One of the best examples of this is Einstein proved that time can bend. That was a metaphorical, philosophical concept.
Sure.
That philosopher said you can't do it. Time can't bend. Time isn't a physical concept. It can't bend. He said yes, it can. Here's a testable prediction where you can measure the light around the curvature of the sun. If this is right, my hypothesis is right. They confirmed it. Like, oh yeah, you're right, Einstein. This thing that we thought was only a philosophical concept, it's true. We lose. You're right. You can prove philosophical concepts.
Have you ever listened to Feynman or Watts?
Feynman, like Richard Feynman? Alan Watts doesn't know anything about physics.
Alan Watts, those
Alan
guys.
Watts doesn't know anything. But Feynman, yeah, I'm very familiar with Feynman diagrams.
At least you've listened to Feynman.
I listened to Alan Watts too. He's very relaxing. He just doesn't know anything.
Okay,
give me one principle of the world that he knows.
How about energy? Can you prove energy exists?
No.
Like in the scientific, exactly. You in the scientific.
Science can.
I
don't know. If I had a
science
physics,
doesn't prove energy exists. Science actually struggles. That's part of the reason why we have dark matter and all these other things with mass and all this because the idea of law of conservation is energy can't be destroyed. It has to be reused in different ways. And there are examples that we have where our current understanding says that it's destroyed. So I can prove something even with it, even in physics we can prove. And then you're going to argue that some sort of metaphysical concept is definitively provable at all times, even with our current understanding of science. No, it's not provable under.
I did not understand any of the sentences.
I know you don't understand.
Dark matter and dark energy have nothing to do with the conservation of energy. Energy isn't destroyed for dark matter and dark energy. Dark matter and dark energy are things you probably just don't understand. I'm guessing.
I clearly do understand it, considering you don't know what the law of conservation.
How does it have anything to do with the law of conservation of energy?
How does it have anything to do with? Oh my God! Bro. I thought we'd debate. We could dive into this too. We could dive into this too.
Do you know? Do you have any idea what dark matter?
I didn't know we were going to sit here and do the debate about fucking.
You made a claim. You have to. What Sarah's rule? You made a claim. You have to provide evidence.
I made a claim. Okay, let's keep going. Why do we?
Oh, you're not going to provide evidence for your claim.
I mean, I can.
Can I weigh in here? Can I weigh in here?
Sure.
Dear God.
Yeah, I just want to make a point because you guys know my granddad was in 183rd, airborne guy, pilot guy, these types of guys. Yeah,
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for your service, Gibbs, Sarah. So, anyways, I just want to bring up that pragmatism is another lens where it's you might define objective morality, but it's got a dead by date because the theories and all the epistemology it's based on is just done, right? And so that's another view of.
What do you mean by done?
I mean, it means that if the way I'd say it is in my worldview is if you're doing truth seeking by talking about objective morality, it's you are doing something that is truth seeking and truth apt, and it's very unlikely. There's a very low Bayesian probability that something you believe was probably most likely true is now it's now wrong. But the fact that moral judgments stay the same over time and don't themselves update themselves into the future, to me, I think that's about not Bayes, but it's about pragmatism instead on top of it.
Well, they do change. That's progress. They change consistently.
Sick as fuck, dude.
So moral progress is the fact that morals do change consistently across time.
Because the main reason that the main reason is because if you're making a moral judgment, right, that's your teleology, and so fuck that, right? I don't need to listen to you ever.
Well, I don't care what you think. That's irrelevant. Moral progress.
Morals change when you just clarify.
Because if I'm eating the moral pussy, eating the moral pussy, and it's this is apricot, this is hints of melon and all this other shit.
Trying so hard not to suck. Seriously.
What the hell, Doc? That doesn't even make any sense. Let me maneuver over, and just so you know, this is all Iotin's fault. She not only booted the shaman backstage, how dare her, but she also gave Doc not one but 2 credits to protect him up here. So if you want to boot Duck, it's going to take the first 20 to negate the credits, but also then another 10 on top of that to get him out of here. Just so you know, we still love you, Iotin. We forgive you. Sometimes she does it just to troll us, I think. In the 4th Wiseman with the Big 10 says, LOL, of course I can boot TJump, Sarah. This is easy. His neighbor will unplug his interwebs with a simple donation. If you won't do it, consider it morality as oxymoronic, agnostic, atheist, theism. Hot diggity. Shots fired. Jeez. I told you, Tom, that you're going to piss off both the Christians and the atheists all at once here. And you got every single one of them hating
I have a question, please. I have a question, please, for T-Dump up there.
I want to go after
How can you sit there and allude?
That'd be a real question.
I got a real question.
Could you guys shut up and let him finish?
Thank you. Yeah.
Just let him impressed. How can you sit there and say morals constantly change when you just said not 5 fucking minutes ago that you have no morals?
How does me having morals affect?
Are you one of those people that ate paste in fucking grade school? Seriously,
you're making the same dumbass claim Clay did. You're confusing the.
I'm not confusing a fucking
no,
thing.
you definitely are.
Hold on, I want to hear his explanation of what's confusing.
Your question was, how can I claim that morals change when I am immoral? That is saying, here is one particular example of murder. How can I claim the moral trend is going down with one particular example of murder? That is confusing the trees for the forest. If there is a larger trend across a population, one specific example isn't evidence of a change in the larger trend. So how can one person be moral when there's a larger trend? It's because you're a dumbass. This is very easy.
I'm a dumbass.
Yes.
I'm the one that's sitting up here that says that I listened to the whole fucking thing, even on another panel, because I was intrigued by your stupidity.
Wow.
Seriously.
Do you have another point?
Let me ask you a question. I want to go back to the.
Well, hold on,
sorry.
Gibbs. Let me say this. Let me say this. You just fucking said you have no morals.
No, I said I'm immoral.
Can I ask the panel a blatant question? Did this dumbass say he had no morals?
No, he didn't say that. Scott, you you were mislistening there, right? I'm telling you here, you're mislistening.
Doc, you think that Sniz tastes slightly like melon?
Hold on.
Guys, come on.
Hold on. There is a difference between saying I'm immoral and I have no morals, right? I have no morals is like negating the whole concept of morals in and of itself, essentially. But saying I'm immoral means I recognize there are morals and I'm not good at them, right? So Spin, he did say I'm immoral. That was when Calvin asked the question about having kids, so on and so forth. So that's a whole different piece there if you really sit and think about it. There are two different variations, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Gibbs and let him.
Okay. I still think
No, Spin. My name is Gibbs.
Directions on mouthwash, but that's beside
Gibbs.
That's great. I recommend Listerine. It burns. It's good for you. Get the ultra intense. All right, now back for the question. So about the dark energy and dark matter, guys. I just want y'all to take everything he says about energy as a grain of salt and his science knowledge, because the guy said I didn't know. But let me explain to some stuff here, because he just denied basic physics. And I'm going to do it uninterrupted real quick. Dark energy, right, is basically a force or an energy that's basically pushing things away from the center of the universe, and that leads to theories about the ultimate cooling of the universe, the heat death. Yes, this is true.
Where's the center of the universe?
Well, that's a good one. We don't know because we can't see it. But dark,
because there isn't one.
Matter,
there isn't one.
Dark matter, however, is we know exists.
Are you reading Google?
Subatomical. We think it. No, I'm not reading Google, but I'm just summarizing. Dark matter exists. We know it exists because we see the gravitational effects on it. We think it's a subatomic particle of some sort, but we know that it exists, and we know that gravity is a force. Now, here's what's interesting about that: gravity does have gravitational potential energy. So yeah, all these things I said are based in reality, and he's denying even the own science that he has talked about. So I would take everything he says along science terms as a grain of salt, because the guy is. I mean, I'm just picturing.
What did you say dark matter was? What is it?
Dark matter is basically some sort of energy. Or dark matter. Dark matter is the subatomic
sort of energy
that affects things with gravity and forces things.
Affects things with gravity. Like what? What does it affect with gravity?
Like clusters of galaxies. That's a good example. Yeah, I mean, do you disagree with that statement?
Yeah, so dark matter is actually the phenomenon we see where the edge of a galaxy is spinning at the same speed as the center of a galaxy, which shouldn't be.
That is not what dark matter is. You're wrong.
I'm sorry. What? Do you want me to Google this for you? What is dark matter?
Yeah, all right. You read it to us. And I'm going to read the same Google, and we'll see what it says.
While you guys are shut up, Doc. Shut up, Doc. Shut up, Doc. While you are finding your definitions and getting ready to do that, the Gauntlet channel is officially open. We are moving our way over there before this gets bad. So if you already know where you're going, head over there now. If you don't know where you're going, if you're watching on the Raging Tomato, just follow the raid over. It will take you there, or my amazing, awesome mods will drop the link in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and close out the Raging Tomato side now. We'll catch you over there.